And so today we continue our amazing journey into the soul and the ocean of spirit. And so what we are uncovering here is our own really design that of course is multidimensional. And the most exciting part of this design is really looking at the highest potential of it. So I like to go top down. And so that's what we did yesterday. We looked at the ocean as the spirit emanating really from source, from that which we call God, beyond Divine Father, beyond Divine Mother, into creation, creating and giving birth to souls, and not like a soul, like one person has a soul, but actually very large, individualized beings, field of consciousness and energy that have this amazing gift to remain immortal and yet to be dreaming dreams of life and death. And not just here on the earth, but also everywhere in creation. And so in this dream reality, the dream realities are infinite. So you can start perceiving yourself, and this is just, I want to say, it's happening to all of us since 2019, and some of us even before through meditation. But since 2019, especially since August, the divine self, which is even beyond the soul, has started to actually contact us in a whole new way. And we speak about ascension, but there is also an element of descent. So ascension, descension, if that's the word, descent, I guess. And so we are actually experiencing both. And I always speak from experience, and I hope that these puzzle pieces assist every single one of us to be motivated or to understand what's going on. Because understanding to me is really important. And that means in August in 2019, the divine self from the realms even beyond the soul started to descend through the structure that we are, which means going through all the layers of our multidimensional being, always along the what we call, the column of light, the tube of light, and it moves through our multidimensional spine, which goes beyond the head. You can actually see it. If you see stuff, you'll see the spine, and it takes us all the way to source. I also call it the umbilical cord because we are always connected. We really are no longer disconnected in any way, but it's all about purifying this beautiful chimney through which the divine self moves through these layers down through the pillar of light into this human being, into this human body. And so we can say that the human body is a receiver of these amazing divine energies that of course come as rays of light. All of this is truly about illuminating the human being here to once again remember what we are doing here, why we're here, who we are not. And so we are truly also expanding into much more than we have ever been. And so when I started to experience this, I've always meditated a lot, like many of you, of course, meditate, and I think all of you meditate. And so through meditation, all of this also was available to us, but it was really a lot of hours, thousands of and thousands of hours of meditation. But now it's more like, oh, okay, let me just close my eyes while I'm standing in the sunrise, and I'm just going to call in my divine self, connect with my soul, call in the wonderful, all the layers of your own being. And next thing you know, you are in bliss and you don't even know how. It's just so simple these days. And so when this started to happen to me, suddenly the information from the field of the soul, which is all the millions of characters that the soul has dreamt, started to come randomly, spontaneously into the human consciousness here of this human being. And then suddenly there was so much more to know and understand. And of course, that gives us a little bit of a map. And the map is really important. It's like driving. And so when we know where we're going, when we know where the road is, we have directions, we get those directions from these higher levels of our own being. And so, we are going through this massive transformation, not only what you would call consciousness, of course, that's why we have awakening, but it truly is also the transformation of our physicality. So the body itself is transforming. Now, for those of you who are the wonderful disciples of our Yogananda, then you know that there is this incredible method that Yogananda taught and that the Self-Realization Fellowship still teaches, as well as Ananda, which is another branch of the teachings of Yogananda. They also teach Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga is something that, I received an initiation through SRF, through a Self-Realization Fellowship. And when I received the initiation after studying for, several years, then it was as if when the monastic touched my third eye, suddenly I could receive galactic consciousness. And I don't mean any beings, but I suddenly in my third eye, as they touched the forehead, that's what they used to do. I don't know if they still do it. I suddenly perceived myself as a being that has the galactic consciousness, being able to kind of feel all life within the galaxy. And so Yogananda, he was teaching, and obviously they still teach the Kriya Yoga. And Kriya Yoga is really a process in which you magnetize the spine and you learn how to withdraw from all your senses, where you no longer hear, see, smell, touch, nothing exists. You cease to exist eventually. And even though it might be for small moments, it could even be for hours. For some people, it could be even for days and nights. But that is pretty much, it was also a method that was preparing every cell in the body for direct contact, not only with divine self, beyond the soul, but also for God. So for God contact. So everything's about intensity. And because now we are in the so-called year 2020, is it 3? Then our bodies are actually at a global level being transformed so that we can have direct contact with our own divine self from these higher planes, so that the body can receive actually the fullness of this divine consciousness. So again, what used to be a lot of effort now is actually happening because the divine self has reconnected to this being that we are in this world, and just keeps kind of gently, hopefully gently, pushing its way, moving through these beautiful pillars of light that run through our spine. So there is so much that is going on at the level of the body. The body truly has been releasing density. I started to first see it in 2020. Yogananda came to me in October 2019, and he said, we will be purifying at the cellular level. Humanity will be going through purification. And so every time I was going into meditation and my third eye opened, I could see these dark kind of particles around us, all of us. And it lasted throughout 2020, these tiny little black particles. And I was wondering about that. What's going on inside of us? Why are we surrounded by particles of, really, you would call it almost darkness? And other people were telling me they see the same thing. And to me, our bodies physically were releasing density. And so you see what happened in 2020. It was about releasing a lot of physical density. And so it is truly that our bodies are being transformed. Every cell is becoming conscious. And Yogananda told me also that we will experience truly the end of aging as deterioration, which again was not possible really in, for the civilizations before us. But now it will be possible. Every cell will be maintained by the light of God. Yes. And so in 2020, it was a big transformation of the physical body, and that still continues. So what happens when you look at this structure, it's all the same. It's just different ways of depicting all of it, right? I came up with this yesterday because that's the way Yogananda showed it to me. And I kind of like playing with this, because this is when you see the human being, you no longer see yourself as separate. You no longer see yourself as like this one character who has to struggle and survive. There's truly nothing to survive, because at the level of the soul truly is immortal. And so it's good to understand all these things. And the soul is not only dreaming, you in this character that you are, or we are really, it is a dream. We have to remind ourselves, why did it become a dream within a dream? And the reason for that is that when we are completely conscious, like a master being, then we know exactly that all is a cosmic dream at that big cosmic level. And it's almost like God is dreaming, conscious spirit is dreaming. And the dream is actually happening within the souls. And that's where the characters exist. But when the character starts to identify with the character, when the character is trying to survive, when the character is actually disconnected from the wholeness of the whole game, then the character feels so real, so separated, and it only seeks conditions around itself, himself, it, herself, right? And then the character starts placing all power into the conditions that are around. So conditions that will make the character happy, conditions that will make the character unhappy. And so that becomes then a trap. And so the character then kind of is constantly reacting to the outside. And that's why we as mystics, we actually withdraw from the outside, and we master our ability to withdraw, not because we don't want to exist. We always will exist, not as that character, but at the level of the soul and at the level of spirit, we are eternally in existence. But the little character here will obviously also come and go. And so as mystics, we learn to withdraw. We gain our power from these upper levels of our being. Once again, this is so much easier than ever before. We can do it just, very easily with one breath. It doesn't require anymore all these millions of hours of meditation and lifetimes. And so then we actually gain all our power and our actual satisfaction from these upper levels of our being. And then we bring those down. In a way, we are enlightening ourselves by being able to go up and down. You go up to get the light of consciousness. And today we will learn and deepen our process. And then you come down and bring it down using breath, doing some pranayama, learning to breathe through the spine, focusing into the spine. So when you look at what it means to actually be a mystic and what practices do mystics use, all mystics try to make room for the highest levels of their being to be able to come down and to shine all the light through this being into this world. It requires surrender, joy, love, but also we've had some mystics that experience this not through surrender to joy, not to surrender to love, but they also surrendered through pain. And I always say, let's walk the path of love and light, because that's so much more pleasurable when it comes to shining the light. So Eckhart Tolle, for example, everybody I think knows Eckhart Tolle and his story when he, was about to end his life. That's when he received actually consciousness from his divine self. And so all the teachings of Eckhart Tolle actually come from his surrender through actually internal pain. So we can also do the surrender through love, through joy, through bliss. And so then the light of consciousness shines in. And so the mystical practices, number one is always training attention, training focus. Without focus, not much can be achieved, right? Because the mind is so diluted, all the thousands and thousands of random thoughts. So we need to start focusing. Focus is a wonderful basic practice for our mystical path. We also want to be using so-called mystic breath. And we've trained here many, many times different breathing techniques. But if you just learn to breathe through the spine and you are able to focus into the spine and then move the energy up and then slowly down the spine. That's a very basic mystic breath, being able to truly move through the spine. Now, there is something that seems so simple, and Divine Mother speaks about it quite a bit, and it is the power and the art of deep, deep relaxation. Now, if I just say, learn how to relax, it doesn't sound so profound, but I can tell you from experience that if we can deeply, deeply, deeply make the body so relaxed that you feel like you are actually sinking, that you feel like you are falling, that you feel like you are truly moving into kind of like this heaviness that becomes lightness, then something magical happens. And this is actually something that I would suggest everyone practices every day, because it is how we release our heavenly body from our physical body. And we practice this every day. And then one day that allows us to float our heavenly body out of the physical body. And the physical body itself goes into this heaviness that becomes nothingness. This is when we withdraw all our senses. And so, I practice this every single day, but I found that this can be practiced not only in meditation, but actually deepest relaxation is easiest when you are tired, but not asleep. And so, for example, you lay on your back, you make sure that your architecture, your structure, your bones are beautifully aligned. And then you practice relaxation to a point that every nerve in your body lets go. And it does feel like you are sinking. It does feel like you are maybe even moving through the mattress. And it does feel like you are falling. And then as we allow the physical body to completely let go, truly the heavenly body arises and floats out. And that's a whole new story. So deep relaxation is a wonderful practice, and it's incredible what it can do to our consciousness. So again, as mystics, we use attention, breath, we work with relaxation, but also illuminating the body. Illuminating the body, one of my favorite practices is truly illuminating every cell in the body as if every cell was a shining sun. But also a fun practice from Taoism is to see your skeleton as golden light shining out. And the skeleton has a very important, of course, role to play in running energy in this world. So we want to pay attention to the skeleton. The next mystical practice is not only breathing, that we move, our life force, but it is actually inhaling life force and bringing life force into our cells, into organs, into all the systems. And for example, Yogananda, he was doing energization exercise, but there are many different ways to do this, but definitely focusing on vital force. And then an introduction of sound. That's another mystical practice that we have. And the most wonderful sound that I learned from Divine Mother that we all know is the sound of Om. And with Om, we become magicians. We no longer just make sound, but when we actually sing, chant, when we utter the sound of Om, we are truly transforming all that is within us and around us. It rewires everything around the human being. Today, we will be working with a meditation that is from Oren Daben, and it's from a website, orendaben.com. That's when we stop recording so that everybody can go. It's a free tool. I actually reviewed all the new rules that they have on orendaben.com. I'm not even certain that even the free meditations can be played online from what I understand. But we will do the Violet Flame because it's online for free. I assume everybody else can listen to it anytime they want. We are not recording it, so we can hopefully do that. And when we work with Oren, this is a path that I took for many, many years. Today we will be doing the purification with the violet fire. Now the violet fire, again, as mystics, we heard so much about it. And the thing is that Yogananda taught me that before we can actually fully experience soul contact, before we can fully rise through the structure and go even beyond the soul, we do need to purify the human being down here. And the purification goes deep. This is the purification of the physical, where we have all these channels in the body, we have our chakra system, but it's also our earthly bodies. And as human beings, we have a multitude of earthly bodies. We have the etheric body around us that we can perceive as aura. And then we have our emotional and mental body as well. And usually where the mess is, right? For most people, it's in the mental body, but also in the collection of energies in the etheric body. Yes. So the purification is the key. So I was talking to Yogananda this morning because I always want to make sure that what we are teaching and sharing is the most important thing for this moment in time. And so he was just reminding me, purification is the key. That's where we become lighter and lighter and lighter. And the lighter we become, the higher we can rise. And so we can use the purification with the violet flame. We can use the living fire of God that Yogananda taught us, which was golden fire of God, as long as we walk in it. And of course, try to be clean, right? We don't want to have thoughts that are all over the place. When people go through this amazing transformation, they become aware of all the thought forms of all other people. And so then you, let's say, walk through the airport and you actually feel, see, and hear the thought forms of human beings. And because human beings don't think that thoughts become things, they just think and think and think and think. And sometimes and often they don't think about things that are all that pretty. And so one beautiful practice that I received a while ago from Divine Mother was to think flowers. Think flowers. And so, it's actually a practice that's very mystical. And there's a practice where we actually use etheric flowers. And so when you go through the airport, you want to be thinking flowers and you want to be moving in the violet flame because there's a lot of thought form, So the astral sphere, right? That's where all the thought forms are before they become things. And so that's why it's so dirty often. And so we want to be clean and walk in the violet fire. Absolutely. Beautiful. And so today we will do that, and then we will go into soul contact. So if you have been studying here with us and learning here with us, then we know that there is the level beyond the soul. And we've been working with the divine self quite a bit. And so that's where our ego ceases to exist. Once again, to go into the soul, and today I will introduce one practice for the soul that Yogananda taught me, is to understand that all these characters, and of course we cannot fit millions of characters inside the soul. So let's say from the perspective of God, if we speak about God, all these millions of years, human years, feel like a split second to the divine consciousness. And so when we go to these higher realms, time, ceases to exist. And it truly just exists in the movie. And so when you have these millions of characters that your soul has dreamt in those millions of human years that seem like a split second to the mind of God, then these characters also had free will in this world, especially, as you know. And so that's where karma gets created. When the character is actually acting out of alignment with divine will. And so we want to become characters who actually are able to always be connecting to divine will and act with divine will or aligned with divine will. And it's very simple. Divine will is always good. I don't know if it's true or not, but tell me, the word God, someone just said recently that it comes from the German word good, our English word good. And so if that's true, then it's okay. So it's simple. God is good. And so divine will is always good. It is always love. It is always selfless. The ego self is actually the one that is wanting things for himself, herself, itself, but that is not the will of the divine self. The divine self is always absolutely selfless. The self only exists within the dreams. So we are a character right now. You and me right now are a dream character within the soul. And I started to have experiences that I shared about before, but I want to mention those before we go into our practice, where because the pillar of light got so activated since 2018, actually, not just 19, that I was perceiving at the same time as this human being also all the other dimensions at once, and not just the dimensions, but also parallel realities of this earth with all of us in it. And I was able to see all the people I have ever known within those realities. So you can imagine at the level of the soul, there's a lot going on, just like in the Netflix, right? With all the millions and millions and millions of movies happening, and they are there right now, and the characters are within them. And so that's why at the level of the soul, there is a lot going on, but it's all within the soul as a dream reality. Even the new earth experiences, the encounters with being on the new earth, and knowing that the new earth is this beautiful dimension of light that really at the moment surrounds the core of the earth as light. And so one day when ascension will be complete, the new earth will actually be birthed as a core of the earth, as a luminous world. But again, all of this already exists. Even the future timelines exist within the soul. And so I asked Yogananda once I was able to enter the soul. Again, the soul too has a North Pole and a South Pole. And it's good to know this because there is a flow of energy that actually supports us. And so once we go into the soul, it's like entering through a membrane. And once you are in, first, you are a character. You are just you as you enter, and you might even perceive yourself with your etheric double. You might perceive yourself as a woman, as a man, with the same kind of person that you are here in this world. And so that was my beginning practice with Yogananda, just being able to enter through meditation into the plane of the soul after my purification. And purification, once again, is what we're doing here today. But then he said, learn how to dissolve your character. Learn how to become one with the consciousness of the soul beyond the character. And so I was practicing this for 2 years, every single day, completely dissolving my character, meaning becoming one with the consciousness of your immortal soul, beyond any form, becoming one with the soul to a point that all the characters cease to exist and you become as large as your soul. And it truly is an energetic experience where your consciousness is getting used to expansion, 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 expansion. And you no longer behold yourself, but you completely identify with the entirety of your soul consciousness. There are no eyes, no legs, no arms, no person, nothing. And yet you are one with the soul. It truly is an energetic transformation that happens. And so when that happened, finally, complete dissolution within the soul, you also gain full soul power. And that harmonizes the character in this world, because the character, of course, also receives all the upgrades that are done at the level of the soul. And so that's my next invitation, is to actually practice completely dissolving your own kind of individualized consciousness, which is our habit of being this character, into the oneness of the soul beyond all. And all the characters then live within you, but you become one with the soul. And then that's where we gain a lot of information about who the soul is, who we have been, what all other options we have. It's a really fun exercise to do. So for now, we have two things that I recommend, and that is dissolving at the level of the soul and the deepest, deepest, deepest physical relaxation that you can possibly train yourself to experience, and going so deep that eventually your heavenly body separates itself from the physical, even if it's just for a split moment. It is truly a remarkable experience. And so today we will be once again using the violet flame for our purification of the personality self, so that we can experience these higher and higher and higher realms that are available to all of us. So I'll stop recording